righty, I think it is time to start. Good morning, everybody. Oh gosh, I feel like we can do better than that. Good morning, everybody. Oh yes, that's the kind of energy that we love to see. Wow, I'm going to kick away my own phone. Anyhow, welcome to Open Book Festival, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I have the great honor of being on the stage with these prolific authors, so I'm going to ask you to give a warm round of applause and welcome to Antjie Krog, Malika, Ndlovu, and Lebo Mazibuko. Thank you. I'm going to start off this session by warning you all that I'm going to tell you throughout the session that you need to go and buy these 3 books if you don't have them already. So take a photo right now. These are the 3. Yes, you see, we have a person who's for real taking out a photo. Yes, a phone. Do it, do it, do it. Oh, you can't see this one. My apologies. There you go. So we've got Grief Seed. You got it? There you go. This one is very new, as in it just came out when, Lebo? 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And Antjie's Personal Blood's Inner Rhyme. Okay, I think I'd like to start off this session by inviting Malika, if you don't mind, if you could welcome us into the space as you do. Your book reads as a ritual and as a meditation, so I thought getting something from you just to make us very present would be wonderful.
You are, you are a river that cannot be denied. You are a river that will not be denied. A daughter, a son, born to return. And for the sky, Mother Sea, remembers each one's name. Alone on our paths, great or small, essentially, eventually, the same.
Thank you. Okay, so to kick off this discussion, I wanted to talk about the term difficult. I know that the name of this panel is Difficult Mothers, but you know, as soon as I read all three of these books, I really started to challenge that word. And also just because that word in relation to woman is a very difficult one for me. And I know that for me, in all three of your books, all of the mother characters and the woman characters, both fictional and non-fictional, I would describe them as complex, maybe. And also as really responding to the landscapes that they are in and impacting them and being impacted by them. So my first question to you is, what is a difficult woman? And also, would you describe yourself as difficult? And by extension, would you describe your mother as difficult?
Yeah.
Layered, ne?
I'm going to get some water.
Yes.
Sure. I think I found when I saw the topic, it was slightly jarring. And I asked myself, like, why am I on this panel? And then I had to remind myself about the characters in the story. And even myself having to navigate my own relationship with my mother. And I'm fascinated by the mother-daughter relationship. I wouldn't say my mother is difficult, no. She's a wonderful woman who it's taken me a lot of time to understand her. And also understanding that she's a woman first before mom. And it took me becoming a woman and understanding myself to get clarity about our relationship. So I wouldn't say, I like the word you use, complex. My mother is complex, she's layered, she's wonderful, deeply spiritual. And because I am the opposite of her, and in many ways like her, it's taken me time to understand her, but she's not difficult. I'm not difficult. Layered, yeah.
Layered, yes.
Yeah, I was also a bit irritated by the word and thinking, it's actually complex. My mother is complex. But then I thought if you look at it in terms of old vocabulary, they would say my mother is a difficult woman. My brother still thinks she was a difficult woman. And so I begin to regard it as an honorary badge, that you're difficult. You just don't simply go with the flow of what people expect of you. But it's of course, and it's the same, that when you're young, you are angry at your mother, and the moment that you grow older, you realize her own confinements, the borders that you had to negotiate, and how and in what ways bravely she did it, and also angrily she did it, and also where she collapsed and sort of gave in and carried it over to you that you should be this kind of woman, because this is better.
You didn't answer the question about whether you're a difficult woman, are you?
I don't care.
Buhle, I'm glad that you troubled the word right up front, because that would have been my first response, was to say, would I have wanted a not difficult mother, like someone who behaved? And definitely not. My mother is fire, I am water, so there's definitely a kind, obviously there's all these visceral connections, and then there are certain patterns that I pay a lot of attention to in my life generally that are such profound echoes of my mother's life. For me, it has been a journey of discerning what's mine and what's not mine, to carry, to heal, to rebel against, to go beyond. And she had me at 19, I had my son at 19, he had his son at 19. I mean, that kind of umbilical. And so I feel like this distinguishing what is mine, even of my mother's, to carry, where I can have a choice. Other things I can't. It's in my, it's there, cellular. She is difficult. She is complex. She is extraordinary. She has been my primary school, and I'm 54 years old and a go-go, and I am still deep in school with my mother school, as in. I inherited certain curricula from her that I passed on to my sons, and certain ones that I said, hi, this is where it stops. That's not how I'm going to do it. And so, yeah, I'm still deeply in school, especially as her life tapers, shall I say, as a gentle word to describe it. Her fire hasn't tapered. So it can feel difficult. And I'm really glad that she was a difficult woman from difficult times. I think that empathy has always been the starting point. Viscerally, I felt the difficulty of where she comes from and how it shaped some of her most difficult qualities to engage with. But yeah, I wouldn't choose another mother for myself. Maybe versions of her I would have, had my say about, but she is her whole self.
Yes, thank you so much. I wonder if we can speak a little bit more about this mother-daughter relationship that each of you seem to explore in these works to some degree. And Antjie, if you wouldn't mind reading from your book from page 38, from the perspective of your mother, about woman and daughter relationships in literature.
You are right, it's a letter from my mother. Literature has done surprisingly little exploration into the mother-daughter relationship, or as you put it, other-daughter. Therefore, a speech on this topic at Oranje Girls High would be breaking ground. It's terrible that only now, when everybody around me is doddering on titanium hips, I realize that even the Bible has nothing on the subject. Says a lot about the adulterous relationship of Bathsheba, the mother and daughter-in-law relationship of Ruth and Naomi, the mother-son relationship of Jacob and his mother, Hannah and her son Samuel, Mary and Jesus, even brother and sister in the story of Tamar, but nothing about mother-daughter. The mother and daughter around Moses are only referred to as gutsy saviors of the baby boy. Even Ecclesiastics and Proverbs, which have a mouthful to say about the contentious woman, the chatterbox woman, the faithless woman, the God-fearing woman, have nothing about mother and daughter. And then also Afrikaans poetry has hardly also anything. And then she says, perhaps the Greeks are the only ones who got the inner rhymes right of Persephone grieving after her daughter. And she says, forget we marry our mothers. Perhaps a daughter shouldn't know what she is internalizing of the mother. Perhaps the most successful relationship is a non-relationship, a breakout of each other's grasps. But then there is this poem, Mother, I am not except in your earth. When you yelled and your skin shivered, my bones took fire. You do not return to me. From you I recover not.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask all three of you, but starting with Antjie, with all of that in mind, Antjie, how did this book come about? How did you decide to write this book? And also, how did you go through the process of going, okay, I am going to include my mother's voice very directly in this book, and not only that, you go into the archive, and do you include other mothers and daughters and granddaughters and grandmothers, etc.?
I think this book wasn't meant to be. It wasn't also planned. I wrote about her ending, about her death and becoming weaker, and I thought it was only for private use. I would share it with the siblings. And then I actually wanted to write something about Kroonstad and then think everyone is already so told how the small towns are collapsing. What on earth do I have to? So, and then I went through archives in academic work. And so in the end, it's a lot of various pieces that suddenly one day you realize it's all coming together within my mother. If I treat her as sort of a remnant of a kind of Afrikaner that you don't, fortunately, get anymore. And so all those things contribute to that obsession of her to care for the folk. Yeah, and so yeah, I wanted to get rid. I myself, me personally, I wanted to get rid. I want to cut it off from myself. But it's hard to cut you off from something that, yeah, is. You want to stop the inner rhyme. I want to go into free verse or rap style or something, you know. But yeah, I'm too old.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Malika, for you? And also just acknowledging that Grief Seed is a book of also, similarly to Antjie, who's used many forms. There's the archive that speaks, there's your mother's letters also, then there's your writing that responds very directly. And with you, you've got contributions from other women also. You also respond to the times. And I found when I read it, I often had to take breaks, actually, because it evoked so much and I had to go, okay, it's touched something there today, let's put this down, let's come back tomorrow. And also you've got such incredible imagery in that. So if you could just talk us through the process of deciding this is the book and this is what it's going to maybe be.
So definitely, thank you. I've been saying a lot that Grief Seed, the book, is just the physical manifestation, like a marker in the ground, that becomes a reference point that we can finally have grief conversations about. That I can, so just to backtrack on a practical level, I think I have been writing, using my writing as a therapeutic outlet or as an artivist outlet for most of my life. I didn't have a time when I thought of writing as something else. It just, that's how I came through or came into it. And so the nature of what I've been writing since I was really young was, I guess, I was born into a grieving womb. And my mother's mother had just died, and she conceived me not long after and not happy with who she was going to be with. So from that visceral, transgenerational and womb lineage, I was born into grief and trauma on a couple of levels that has made it a lifelong obsession for me, but also natural. Like I felt a natural response, and then to realize that some of the work that I was sharing around those deeply intimate experiences had such resonance for other people that wasn't as much about being impressed with my literary skills or style, but something that connected our stories. And for me, my entire life's experience so far of the multiple forms and complexities and simultaneity of grief did not make sense to write about as myself, alone. Immediately, by virtue of telling my story, I'm in community, I'm in ancestral realm. So obviously, it's going to be at least my own ancestral stories and some family members. And then I also know that words are my way, but I'm fixated with collaborations, and I thrive where people use dance, film, music, all kinds of sounds. I also find my words come from breath into sound, or silence into breath, into sound, into word. So that relationship was to first do a harvest. I got through COVID to a point of feeling, one of the gifts of COVID was suddenly grief conversations were mainstream, and everybody was offering some kind of therapeutic process online or in hybrid form. And I gave myself lockdown as an opportunity to look back at how much hadn't really flown in the world, in terms of other publications I'd made, that these works that I felt spoke so much to that time of mass collective grief and complex grief, and then the grief even catalyzed because of that time and the pandemic. I use it as a cocoon to go in, harvest from different parts of my own life, different forms, had the beautiful accompaniment initially of Kobus Moolman around, should this be a poem or a prose or a what? Its body is changing now. I wrote it when I was 20, but at this stage, it's feeling like it has another body form, and he understood that deeply. And then I knew we had to go beyond words. Now, I couldn't put sound in the book. There is sound in the silence and in the water in the book. But image is so powerful as sanctuary, as breathing space. And so I also ancestrally, I consulted my ancestors on who else should be, how else, what's the shape? Am I done yet? No, you're not. And so I called in 12 people who I felt had already been actively engaging with the capacity for our creative expression to be medicine. They were already doing it in different ways. Land art, site-specific, in the medical anthropology fields, in all kinds of spaces, and invited them into a conversation which I thought was going to be, I'll have a book of my writing and then I'll invite them to come and speak with me in a series of events. But what I was guided to do was to invite them in and embody that first grief seed circle where the conversation could begin. And that chemistry changed any book I had any idea of what it was going to be. I still experience it differently every time I read it because of the chemistry between what each of them have contributed in the ways they sounded.
And because they're not all just at the back.
No, and they're not meant to be endorsements. In fact, that was the invitation. Please do not write an endorsement for this book.
Yeah.
Tell me how it lands in the soil of your life. Tell me how you see it being of service in the genre of work or the terrain that you work in, and how you recognize grief unfolding there and the need for us to, or how creativity in some form, creative expression could serve in that way. I've been doing it a long time. How are you doing it? How does it land? So that's how the book took its own shape. And it's morphing. It's like grief. It's not static. It's not one site, and it's certainly not a book of solutions. It's a communal conversation that's teaching me a lot as I now apply it.
Yeah, it's definitely very evocative. You have this amazing line, our bodies mourn even when we do not know or have evidence of what was taken from us. And I went, whoa. Yeah, thank you. Lebo. I love Fabrics of Love so much. It is so, for lack of a better word, dope. It really, really is. So I'm also curious about how you came to writing this one. I know that Bantu Nuts is also about a mother-daughter relationship. And in Fabrics of Love, I mean, as soon as we open it, it's very, very, very clear that Moipone and Keke's relationship is strained. So I was just wondering if you could talk to me about writing this one, the process of writing this one in comparison maybe to writing Bantu Nuts.
I think with this book was definitely birthed by Bantu Nuts. There was a lot that I felt I still wanted to say. And going back to the question that you asked previously, I'm also trying to understand my own relationship with my mother. And also having these multi-generational conversations between our grandmothers, how they raised our mothers, and how our mothers are raising us. And I think what tends to happen is that when you have wounds, our mothers tend to bleed on their children. When we're not going back to heal the things that probably happened to them or how they were raised. I mean, with Bantu Nuts, there was a conversation around saying I love you, because we are the generation of wanting affection and affirmation. And as a black girl going to white schools and seeing these white children and how their mothers are always like, I'm so proud of you, I love you. You go back home and you're like, but Mama, why don't you love me?
Yeah.
Why don't you hug me? You know, what is this?
Didn't I send you to school? Didn't I buy you that thing? Is that
I
not
bought
love?
you clothes.
I love you,
put
I get
food-
it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Provision is their way of saying I love
Yeah.
you, and it's they get frustrated with us saying, but isn't this enough? But you feel there's something missing. And I remember a friend of mine, this was in high school, she was like, Lebo, you're so cold. And I had to go back to what does she mean by this? And it's because I had difficulty with showing affection, because I was in that kind of environment where we don't give hugs and kisses every day. So yeah, this from Bantu knots into fabrics of love, I just want to have more conversations, multi-generational conversations amongst us as women, because there's a lot that we have very similar experiences but don't talk about it. There's a lot of things that we also cover up within our homes, because you don't want your business spilling out onto the streets, right? So we use culture and we use religion to clean up the mess or to cover the mess. And yet, a lot of us are bleeding underneath all of that. Yeah.
Could I ask you to read from page 168? It's a pivotal moment where I think Moipone and Keke really face each other.
So you see that relationship?
It's not a game.
168.
168. Let me see if I'm
From the
correct.
top.
Yes. Yes.
Miponi could feel herself coming undone. She had kept so much inside: anger, resentment, pain, loss, secrets. She didn't know how much longer she could keep it all from spilling out. Let's all calm down, Sian said. The things that happened in the past are not important. What is important is that we are here now, and whatever is broken, we will fix as a family. Gege is not my family. That woman is not my mother, Miponi said with steel. Stop, Miponi, just stop it. Miponi could tell that Sian was trying to be assertive. What he failed to see was that Miponi's meekness and forbearance had been stripped away. The strength and volume in his voice didn't rattle her. His posture, tall and strong, didn't intimidate her. He had lost his grip on her many years ago. He didn't have the ability to move her. How could he when he feared her so much? Sian still couldn't look Miponi in the eyes. Now, Miponi wished the same thing could happen with Gege. She hated that Gege had so much power over her, altering her mood and stirring these emotions within her just by simply existing. I burned down her house. That's what happened in Botshabelo. Miponi's voice was calm and measured. I burnt it to hell. And the only thing I regret is that Gege didn't go up in smoke with it. There was a collective gasp, as if the air in the stomachs of those who were sitting around her had been sucked out. The flames on the braai stand had grown. Gyal was too transfixed on Miponi to notice the meat burning. You wanted to kill me, Miponi, Gege asked, shock plastered on her face. Yes, I did, Miponi said flatly. Miponi got up and walked towards the house.
Yeah, now you're going to go buy the book, ne? Now you're definitely like, what happened? And I'd like to use that to segue into my next question. And that's about how do you deal with inherited trauma or legacy in your stories, especially when characters are shaped by ancestors they've never met? I'll give you a second.
How do I, within the story, I think with Fabrics of Love, and I'm sure you've picked this up, it's a series. The book is not complete. There's still a lot more that I need to unpack.
I didn't know that, and I'm very excited now. This is very good.
Yeah, there's a lot that I need to still tie with all these characters. There's a lot of women who are also trying to understand themselves, because I think even as a woman, our process is about unbecoming everything that we've been taught. I'm also in the process of trying to go back to Lebo as a little girl, and trying to figure out where the damage was done. Where did I adopt toxic traits? What did I take from my mother that wasn't mine to take? Perhaps something happened to her that she hasn't explained to me. And I mean, also being raised by a woman who's very closed off. Our mothers tend to be very stoic, and we're more emotionally in tune, I think, and trying to find new ways to deal with our own traumas. We're doing therapy, we're doing a lot of reading, besides doing religion, which I think spirituality does play a big role in understanding self and in healing traumas. And this is also what Miponi uses. She's a girl who is looking for a sense of belonging. And it's her experience or her first encounter with God in the church where she's like, oh, so I'm not alone in this. And I think also understanding that there are people who've come before you, who kind of cover you, that you carry, it gives me comfort. And I think it does give Miponi comfort that she isn't just stuck with this person that she lives with. There is more to her. There is her paternal side of the family. There are women. There's this apron, her grandmother's apron that's passed down to her, and it makes her feel connected to a side of her that she didn't know. It makes her feel loved also. Yeah, it's her first encounter with love, if that makes sense.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Listen, it's a difficult one to answer, and I feel like, I just like to touch whatever we can.
Yeah.
I cannot believe this is the time. This is why I was like, we need an hour with each of you. I think what I would like to do is, Malika, there's a particular poem, I'm so sorry I don't have the number, but where you speak about two of your ancestors intersecting at a particular place and time. And in the meantime, but I feel like it's in my highlighted notes somewhere. But in the meantime, I wanted to ask, Antjie, just because it's in line with all of this, if you could read from page where your mom responds to you. Yes, about writing and what it is that you're writing. There's page 117. Give me 1 second. Oh, there's so many that I want you to talk about is the problem. It's specifically where she speaks to you about writing historically. Wait, give me 1 second. I will find it. Got it.
My mother came into the room and sat down beside me on the bed. From when I was little, I knew already. When she came in to sit on the bed like this, she needed to put me in my place about something over which she had been thinking deeply. I was not wrong. I keep thinking about what that color writer said. And that is why is Afrikaner still writing about the Anglo-Boer War 100 years afterwards? And when people write about apartheid, they say, you must get over it, let's write about something new. I think she is 100% correct. Suddenly, the Afrikaner is obsessed with the camps. We push each other aside to claim family members off the list of names at concentration camp memorials. And why? Because victimhood has become legitimizing. Although we purposefully talked over and worked away the humiliations of the Boer War and only focused on the heroes, the brave, the moral, that which represented the best in us to build ourselves up with it, your reporting at the Truth Commission lustily aided legitimizing black people as victims and made out all Afrikaners as apartheid perpetrators. We are daily experiencing the disastrous effects of this easy stereotyping. A victim has no stake in a future, but a proud loser does. He wants to build. He wants to arrange a dispensation for his people. But when Afrikaners identify as victims, they become useless to society. Luckily, though, as black victims destroy each other and mess up the country's affairs, the Afrikaner is feeling less and less guilty and becomes again useful in the creation of opportunities for himself. The point I want to get to is this. When you go around with the testimonies of Boer War victims, you are also participating in the creation of Afrikaner victims and black perpetrators. You were always against the grain like that. And as always, I find it repugnant. Therefore, whatever you write or want to do with this, you will not, God knows, drag me into it.
So my question for you, Antjie, is how did you decide, because this book is quite vulnerable, you are, I feel anyway, you're quite open, and you share a lot of her. What did you decide to share, and how did you decide what to share and what to hold back? Because I felt like you shared so much. I mean, we've even got her, from her carers, you know, breakdowns of how they looked after her when she got her medication. You even discussed bowel movements between the two of you separately. You know, it's hilarious, it's wonderful, but it's very, very vulnerable. So what did you hold back?
I think it is fiction, eh? Mm-hmm. It's so in a way, in the end, you have to build a story. So you have to give convincing details. You have to have a strong beginning. You have to work up until a high point. You have to have a resolution at the end. You have to have characters. You can't bring in too many new people. It must all. So whatever you use there must reverberate more than once. So if there's this kind of relationship at the end, then it reverberates with another kind of relationship in there. So I think the thing is to capture. I mean, I'm listening. My mother never said "I love you" or embraced me, and she thinks it's a useless action. And someone wrote to me about this because, but one can see that there was love between you and your mother.
Definitely.
And I think, near, because love is such a thin word. You know, I also hear these mothers say, "Oh, love you." Yes, it means that means nix. It means nix because it thins the high, heavy, thick emotion that there is or are between people. So I find love not an adequate word, and it is when you are well looked after. And precisely because my mother from very young told me, "You're not special." And the fact that you can write is not anything special. You're an ordinary girl, and you will finish matric, and you will behave like an ordinary gewone meisie, and you will be a good person. And I was so angry when I was that age, and I so am thankful for that rough treatment, and not to allow myself, to cultivate myself into something. Yes, he's so special. Yeah.
Yeah. But Antjie, to me, that is love also, that fierce willingness to see somebody
for
fully.
Me, that is, you're a project, probably. A project that she drove,
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah.
I feel that fire, Antjie. I got a lot of I love yous and affirmation, but I understand the sense of the alchemy. My mother has broken my heart repeatedly in a way that nobody else can. And that to me is that schooling. She has also been my biggest champion, my opener of the way, the nurturer, you are living out the dream I wish I could have, not make you are my dream.
Yes.
She's understood the distinction.
Yes.
There's so many things that just sit next to each other. They're not erasing each other or in conflict with each other in my reality. It's just, this is all, the whole territory of my mother is all these things. And I cannot filter, or the work has been, in fact, for the last few years, part of making or writing a book also means that you're digging in the soil yourself, not only just conceptually and in terms of all that craft aspect, but it turns the soil inside you. And I had to write, so the conversations I couldn't have with my mother, I wrote as a series of letters that exists in a big black book for all the things she wouldn't stop talking to listen to, for all the things I wish I could have said uncensored. So there is endless, for the times I witnessed what she was doing when she was having her third near-death experience that I was supporting or being in palliative care around. So there's a lot of conversation that's not even with her, that is part of grappling with the complexity of the relationship. But as I read it, as I feel I've found a place for it, I feel a bit more breathing space to look at the things I've written about my mother, from praise poems to to curiosity. Ooh, wow, what a sassy love affair that was. Tell me more, Mom. All kinds of things that I'm making, it's a peacemaking with ways I may not be able to make peace with her in a conversation, or maybe I will. Things change all the time. You had asked, and I'm just going to tag it onto what you asked, because I intentionally, because I had been, as I said, so viscerally entangled with my mother, that I spent time in the processing. I was gifted the cocoon of Tony Stewart's The Writer's Oasis in February last year. And instead of continuing with all my other projects, I said, this is for me. I'm taking this time to write, because I can find my mother and my family stories everywhere in my work. Not even everybody else might recognize it, but I know. I have been writing them into visibility, into the future for our children, forever. To say, also, stop fighting. Can you see how beautiful and amazing you are? Anyway. So I felt I was on a decenter the mother was like an intentional compass direction that I set for myself, which wasn't like elbow Mom out, but find a place to put as much of her down, let her be, let myself feel. Parts of me are forgotten because I've been so absorbed in her nearly leaving and me needing to forget what I need and just give, hold. Be both an archival place, but also a dumping ground and a vomitorium and alles for her. So, anyway, so I intentionally chose to, in that turning towards myself, I also inherited narratives about the men in my family. The grandfathers, the fathers. I saw things in my uncles, and I felt that I inherited also a kind of unsafety around men that is real and also deeply inherited with my mother's rage towards them. And I have 3 sons that I'm not passing that on to. So and grandsons. So I at least not intentionally, they'll have to find their ways. But my point is that I chose to focus on inviting in connection with male ancestors and more from my maternal line, who had also been told about the strong woman who came through everything, and I praised them. And always there was this unbelievable, as in not credible, projection of my grandfather, for example, on that paternal side, as just this abandoning alcoholic and da-da-da-da. So I called him in, and he arrived. And he called me by my middle name, which I've now put back on the book, Louine. And I could hear like the timbre of his voice when he said, "I'm so glad you haven't forgotten me." I remembered his smell, his shoes. I learned that he played music, that he was the poor alcoholic bricklayer who also disappeared with all the children in the street who didn't have either fathers around or food to eat, took half his money for the bottle, but the other half before he went to the bar and bought everyone drinks and played music on a clavier and piano. He went to pick up everybody else's kids and took them to the beach and for lollies. So they came back sticky, sandy, tired, and their moms were really happy. You know, I mean, it's anyway. So, but it sounded like you were asking about the historical intersection, which again in the research became infamous Grandpa R.J., Reuben James. I remember you as your first granddaughter, gifted the name Louine from your first daughter, who loved and cared for you relentlessly. I feel our bond. I somehow remember from my earliest days being bathed in your love, pride, sensing the ambivalence towards you in the room at any traditional family gatherings, but too young to grasp what this wounding or unforgiveness was about. I thought I had forgotten how it felt to be in your presence. Having grown and had children, even grandchildren of my own, when you were long gone. And perhaps there's no coincidence in my finally writing this in September 2021, when you died on the 6th, what's the day today? On the 6th day of this month, September, 21 years ago. How can I not believe that we remain in a living stream of connection through spirit and genes? You, son of St. Helena Island-born, Scotland-descended Francisco James Conning, and of Capetonian Adrian Marguerite Benjamin, both born in the 1880s. Me, migrating from Durban to Cape Town in the 1990s, having explored my Nguni ancestry substantially in KwaZulu-Natal, knowing this island was an ancestry-rich site for so many of us. We, the descendants, the many enslaved peoples dumped at that passing ship's pit stop and whaling station. I knew I would be closer to fulfilling the dream of visiting this place on my lifelong path of recovering parts of my buried family history. This unearthing has fed my sense of self and dissolved any notions of fixed or pure identities. There was just some part about how Utechwayo's...
Yes.
Yo?
Yes,
That
yes.
part.
Yes, that part. This time.
On re-emerging from the meditation, my first thoughts were around the wild idea, yet not impossibility, of a meeting between my maternal and paternal grandfather's ancestral lines on this very same island of St. Helena off the Cape Coast. Dinizulu Katetwayo, son of Zulu King Tetwayo, exiled by British colonizers, was on the island between 1890 and 1897. My maternal grandfather, Vivian Charles Dunn, is a direct descendant of the so-called Great John Dunn, a Scotsman and military advisor to the king, who made Mangete Zululand his home, along with almost 50 Zulu wives. This lineage incredibly intersects with that of my paternal lineage via the very same grandfather, rumored James R.J. Conning. His father, Francesco James Conning, was born on the island on the 25th of September, 1882.
Yeah. My next question was going to be about legacy, and I wanted to touch a little bit more on the archive with the two of you. I wanted to speak a little bit about Andre Tief also, and I wanted to talk to you about Fumane, to Keke, to Moipone, to Buang. But unfortunately, we have 10 minutes left, and I'm aware that I really have to open it up for questions. So if anybody has questions, how? Oh, no, I thought so. I was like, there's no way. It can't be. We'll start with you.
So my question is particularly touching on the notion of this, I suppose, the stereotypes that we inherit from our mothers in regards to the relationships we enter into with men. I think for you specifically, how have you worked to sort of unpack that and to not carry that forward within yourself, but then also to your children? It's a big question.
Children have helped, I want to say, in some ways. The kind of breadth of loving that becomes possible when you give birth to a child, and in this case, specifically thinking about a male child, where I don't even confine the way I love my sons to their bodies. I tell them that they are made of stardust, and we are atomically sharp. It's not a story. I tell them they are light. And I see that as a form of liberating them from any kind of incarceration into a version of a male body or masculinity. And because I know they're going to come to a patriarchal, like waters, they're going to drink it and breathe it in. So they need to internalize something else to meet that with, and hopefully it serves when they get harmed by that. I gave space for my mother to tell her stories, but I also kept filtering, how that lands. Because the story, as Antjie was saying so beautifully, the beginning, and then there's and the closure. It's not always just as direct as that, but the sense that this is my mother's version of the story. I know the danger of the single narrative kind of thing. There are many stories around that are not being spoken and that don't edify her in the key role of the drama. So she's not going to tell you that. So, I'm just, in some way, we do to others what we do to ourselves. So the men doing the wounding, I'm curious about some of the questions. And yeah, just giving a little space for how else I could relate to males and the masculine other than my mother's frame. And I did that from really young because I met amazing males and I kept needing to bounce up against this, all men, it'll take a truckload of men to flatten me. Pint-sized woman. And someone who also loved fiercely and wildly and was shamed for it. So I also work against that. But it's work, ongoing work. Thank you.
What's it like going back and sort of like excavating the sort of troubled relationship with your moms or the characters when you're now, maybe there's a different relationship? Like, is it difficult to go back and write about the difficult bits if they're like nice bits now? Like, do you worry about like offending anyone?
I'll say one line, it comes with the territory. Yeah,
but it also depends whether she is still alive.
Yes, very important detail.
For me, I think, I write fiction. I write about everybody. I just change your name.
There we go. Oh, great. Thank you all so much for sharing so vulnerably. So I'm a new mom, and it's really been a revelation and an exercise in excavating my own understanding of my mother. And one thing I'm realizing is the ways in which, whether it's political systems, capitalist systems, patriarchal systems, influence, intensify, produce difficult mothers because of the demands on their labor, and you've all sort of touched on it. So how has that understanding kind of reshaped your understanding of your own mothers?
I think in a way it's easier for my generation to understand our mothers, or my mother. There's letters, there's books, there's texts. What I find strange is that today's young women with children, I thought that we fought for a new world for them. They can choose what they want. They can have a job. They can have children. They can marry. They don't need to. And I find the terror among young women completely shocking. It is as if it is even a harsher time than in my time when there was only one route for you. And I'm wondering, why is that happening? Why is that so? That they have the choices, but in fact, those choices are so hard to live out. And you know, so I can understand my mother, but I fear that I don't understand our daughters. There's a pain in me when I look at how they battle and how they succeed, but it's a battle.
Don't you think there's something in the water? Like what I mean? I think one big thing that's missing from this generational phase is technology and the media in terms of this visceral anxiety. So the projection of the fairy tale hasn't changed. It just went from the book and the prince coming to save you and the guy with all the stuff. And I'm not saying that that's the only version of it, but the kind of toxic romanticism around relationship and marriage and the life partner, I think it's one thing in the water to pay attention to, for me at least, you know, is how the fairy tale set you up and you pursued it and you thought it was the right thing to do, and then you had to escape it before Bluebeard, you know what I mean? So...
the word Bluebeard in centuries.
I think the fairy tales are still doing their damage, and
did we
media
fight then?
About the version of yourself you're supposed to present as the offering to the male is still a huge trope. It's everywhere.
Why have we fought? Why was there the feminist liberation? I thought that was destroyed.
The bridge is broken. I'm not saying I know it all, but there are gaps in the bridge is what I think. We are repairing the bridge, hopefully.
And we're aware of the gaps, and we're definitely picking up the baton also and continuing, but it's true, the work remains. I think we have time for one more.
Somebody there.
Hi. Okay, this is coming from someone who has just gone through the shift, but how did you handle moving from needing your mother to having her need you?
I'm in the dance. It's a dance.
Needing my mother, I still need my mom. And I don't think that ever stops, because there's all these different transitions that we go through as women. As a girl, you need your mother in a different way. And the teachings that she gives you. When you go into your 20s, you need your mother in a different way. When you become a mom, you need your mother. Especially in the black culture, you go home after giving birth, so that your mom teaches you how to nurse your baby. There's just certain rituals also certain families perform, so you always need to go back home. But I mean, the circle of life, it's almost like at some point you will be nursing your mother. And so they become children. We are growing and they going the other way. So I don't think there's ever a point where we don't need each other.
Even beyond the body.
Yeah, I think one has to be careful what it is that you want to be needed. I need my children to fix my cell phone, to do my computer, to, sign in on channels and so forth. So I desperately need them technologically. So that's also, it's a serious need. Otherwise, you cut off from everyone, eh?
My mother would agree. She's like, why don't they have an elders simplified? We don't want things to keep changing. I don't want to upgrade.
Yeah,
I
I
want
hate
an
upgrade.
elders cell phone shop with phones that I can understand, and that's enough for me.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, unfortunately, we have reached the end of time for our session. But just to bring us to closing and to presence once more, Malika, I thought maybe you could read page 60, Body Conversations.
Skin listens. Breath sings. Blood cools. Belly waits. Nose craves. Mouth yearns. Back arcs. Legs fold. Tongue sleeps. Lips remember. Eyes blur. Heart swells. Mind quells.
Thank you so much, everybody. As I mentioned before, you can find all 3 of these books outside, and you should definitely buy them. Thank you.